Welcome back to Elster's Rifles and Reloading. Now I know sometimes you're going to feel like you're in brass prep hell, and trust me, you're getting at the end of the tunnel and you can finally see the light. In this episode, we're going to trim the brass and do our final steps of brass prep right before seating the primers. Now if this is the first time you've seen one of my videos, please click on the links on the left and the right to go to the previous episodes that led us up to this point. And one final thing, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, like, and share. So does the intro tell you how much I enjoy brass prep? Maybe a little too much, but hey, what the heck? If you can't have fun in life, what's the point? So here's the brass after part 6 and the second round of cleaning. The brass looks amazing. That Lemmy Shine does a hell of a job. The primer pockets are crystal clear. I'll see if I can focus in on these here. And they're ready to accept primers. Now, before we do this, we need to take care of this, and that's trimming the brass. Okay, so if you're new to the game, you're probably asking yourself, what length do I trim my brass back to? Now remember in part 6, when we sized the brass, more times than not, the brass overall length will grow. Now for 223, maximum length is 1.760. Most people that I know that reload will trim back from maximum 0.010 inches back from maximum. So for me, I like to personally trim back my 223 brass, or 5.56, whatever you want to call it, to 1.750. And for 308, maximum is 2.015. I like to trim mine back to 2.005. Now the amount that you trim your brass back is 100% up to you. You need to do your homework. Like I previously stated in the video before this, make sure your batteries are fresh. Check out on your test piece of brass if you have one, and if you don't, I highly recommend making one. For example, I have this one. I know for a fact this piece of brass is 1.750, and we're going to trim the rest of this 5.56 brass to the same length. Now obviously our main goal is to try and trim every single piece of brass at the exact same length. Now, is that completely and 100% possible? No. But you need to try and get it as close as possible. Now, if you have excessive differences in the length of your brass while you're trimming this, is not good. Typically, that means you have differences in the length of the necks, and differences in that equals different neck tension and different amounts of pressure built up in that one piece of brass compared to the next. If you want to make precision ammo, you need to try your level best to make sure every piece of brass is the exact same length. Okay, for as much as I've been ranting and raving about how amazing stainless steel media cleaning is, there is one downfall to it, and that's peening of the case mouth opening. Now, being that this is Lake City brass and we have excessively bumped back the shoulder, I don't even need to measure this brass to know that it's going to get trimmed, so I don't need to worry about this. But once you fire this brass and you reload it again, more times than not, it's already at its set length and it won't be able to be trimmed again. So it's super important to keep an eye on peening of the case mouth opening. And if you do have it, it's super important to make sure it's re-chamfered. Now with that said, everyone has their own opinions on this stuff, and this is just what I do. Regardless if it's trimmed or not trimmed, just to make sure that this is not an issue, I always do this. Chamfer the inside of the case mouth, just to be on the safe side. So you're going to find out in the reloading community, reading forums, watching YouTube clips, that trimming brass and chamfering and deburring the case mouth openings is heavily seated in opinions. Now right now, using the world's finest trimmers is working amazing for me, and I somewhat lean towards the buy once, cry once method. So buy what you can barely afford and do it right the first time. Now, eventually, I might upgrade to this, but right now I'm using this. Trust me when I say this, you do not want to do brass prep by hand. Either use this, or if money is no issue, buy this, get it over with. And like I said before, in part 2 on your reloading journey, as you upgrade your equipment, you upgrade your knowledge. And right now, these World Finest trimmers are actually serving me quite well. But who knows, I might get one of these. And if money is no issue for you, buy once, cry once. Okay, enough said about that. Let's trim this brass. Okay, so before you do this, make sure you have this. Regardless if you're trimming brass or not, while in the reloading room, make sure you have these on. Last thing you want is a piece of shaved brass in your eye. Okay, so I'm not going to go over how to set up your World's Finest trimmer. That's what your directions are for. My main objective is to make sure every piece of brass is damn near the same length. That's it. Okay, so remember, this Lake City brass was not fired out of my rifle. It came to my front doorstep with a very generous headspace, which we bumped back considerably. Now, I don't even really need to measure this brass to know that it's way over length. Maximum length is 1.760, and as I described earlier, we need to trim this brass back to 1.750. I'll show you how bad this is. Zero out the calipers. Yeah, that's way bad. Enough said, let's trim this. It simply doesn't get any better than that. Like I previously stated, everything you do, regardless if you're shooting a rifle or reloading, everything's based on consistency. If you are using a World's Finest trimmer, keep in mind that it's based off the headspace. If your headspace is off, your trim length is going to be off. So I'm not going to go over all these details again on the 7.62. In essence, it's the exact same thing. Now remember, maximum is 2.015, and we need to trim all this brass down to 2.005. Now, to show you how bad this is after we sized it, yeah, it's way over. Okay, so now all of our brass has been trimmed. We need to deal with this harsh cut at the end of our brass. So the first step is to deburr the outside of the case mouth. Now don't overdo this step, it is possible. Your only concern is to make sure that you don't damage your rifle's chamber when this ammunition is loaded. The next step is to chamfer the inside of the case mouth. This will help in seating the bullets and to make sure that the bullet jacket's not ripped off when being seated. Now, I can't stress this enough, do not overdo this. You can over chamfer the inside of the case mouth and weaken the neck. That's all it takes. You just need to put a small bevel on the inside of the case mouth. That's it. And the last and final step is just to run it on the brush to get all those brass filings out of the inside of the case. Finally, you're done with brass prep. Okay, so I'm not going to go over the 5.56 on the Lyman Case Prep Center. It's exactly the same. The deburring, the chamfering, using the brush at the very end, it's identical. If I can give you some words of wisdom between the two, don't overdo the chamfer on the 5.56. The case walls are much thinner, and it doesn't take long to over chamfer this and damage the brass. With that said, brass prep is done. Thank God. So now that brass prep is done, stay tuned to part 8, seating primers. We are getting so close to using the bullet comparator, dropping powder with the Charge Master, and finally seating the bullet. I hope you enjoy these videos as much as I enjoy making them for you, and if you do, please subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you next time.